Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Addie. I'm a mom to two little girls, a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old, almost 10-month-old. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about preparing to go back to work and pumping at work, and how when you have a little one, you make that transition into a pumping, working mama to be able to still give your baby breast milk when you are out of the house. Now, I will preface this by saying I am not a lactation consultant, I am not a doctor, I am not someone who specializes in breastfeeding and has that as my job. I have just done this twice. I have done loads of research both times because I have had so many nursing issues myself. I have consulted many IBLCs, IBCLCs. I am just, I guess, well-versed because I've had to be. So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I've learned that have helped me, as well as address some of the common problems. Before we get into it, please hit the subscribe button below and give this video a thumbs up. Let's get started. So the first thing that I think a lot of people feel like when they are going back to work is they have to have this huge stash in their freezer. And that's not the case. I know I have seen so many bloggers or Instagrammers who have these little pictures of an entire freezer or 2 freezers full of milk. And so I think that has somewhat become the norm. Like, people just think that you have to have that much milk, and really you don't. You need maybe like 30 to 40 ounces when you go back to work, and that's it. And that's just like your extra supply that you're gonna have at home, because when you're at work, you're going to be replacing what baby eats. So basically you're always going to have 30 to 40 ounces on hand extra, because at work you're going to be pumping every time baby would eat, and it would be replacing that stash. So you're gonna have plenty of milk at home with just the 30 or 40 ounces. Now, I think another misconception is that you should start pumping, as soon as baby's born or just a couple weeks after baby's born. And really, that can cause a lot of issues because you are still trying to regulate your supply at that time, and that can just confuse your body. So really, you don't need to start pumping and trying to get that supply until about 2 weeks prior to going back to work. So if you're going back at 6 weeks, maybe start at 4. If you're going back at 8, maybe starting at 6. And if you get 12, start at 10. If you get the whole year, maybe you may not even never have to pump, but basically 2 weeks, 3 times a day should give you enough to get that 30 to 40 ounces before you go back to work. And you can do that about an hour after baby nurses. That way baby has already had their milk and your supply has started to replenish before you pump it out again. So that is how I would recommend timing wise for starting that stash. So when you're thinking about how much you're gonna need to pump when you're at work, baby needs about 1 to 1.5 ounces for every hour that you are gone. So also make sure you factor in drive time. So for me, I work an 8-hour day plus 15 minutes there and 15 minutes back. That's about 8.5 hours. So I would need about 8.5 to 15.5, I think, 12.5. 8.5 to 12.5 ounces for while baby is gone. And that's all I really need. So as you can see, that 30 to 40 ounces that I said you need stashed at home, it's gonna be plenty for that first day. And then when you're at work, you're gonna replenish it. So you're gonna have enough milk. I would suggest that when you're leaving for work, you feed baby right before you go. That way they are topped off or they are fed. And then when you go to work, you should pump every 2 to 4 hours, replacing the milk that they would drink if you were at home. So then remember the 1 to 1.5 ounces per hour. When you get home, baby is likely going to just want you, and maybe you might want to nurse depending on the age of that child. So when you get home, go ahead and nurse again. That's actually really important for your supply anyway. So nurse before you go, nurse at work, nurse right when you get home. I think another thing that people think is that you need to switch between bottle and nursing so that they get the hang of the bottle, but that's not the case either. They're gonna figure the bottle out eventually, and it's not uncommon for them to totally go on a nursing strike, or not a nursing strike, I guess a bottle strike or an eating strike when you're gone the first couple days, because a bottle could be totally, off-putting to them. Even if you've practiced it, just like not having mom there could be crazy for them, so they might not drink anything the first couple days, but they will get it and they will eventually take that bottle. You don't need to keep switching back and forth. It might just confuse them. Of course you can if you want, but you just don't need to. When you're at work, one little tip I have for you is that say you are pumping, one session and you get 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces of milk in a session. You can keep the milk in that container and put it in the fridge, and the next time you go pump, you can put your milk in the same container. That just kind of saves you bottles, saves you, space. And another thing is your pump parts. So like your flanges and your tube and like everything that you normally would wash, you don't actually have to wash that after every use either. So you can put the whole thing in the fridge and it'll stay good until your next pumping session, and then you can just bring it back out and then wash it once at the end of the day. That just makes things a little bit easier and a lot of time saving, because obviously pumping at work already takes a bunch of time. So anytime you have a time saver, that is a big plus in my book. One thing that I will also mention is that when you are gone, you want to make sure that whoever is with baby at home is pace feeding. Pace feeding is so important for breastfed babies because they are not used to things just being poured down their throat. If it is, they will probably drink it. It'll cause their stomach to expand, and then you might run into issues of you might not thinking you are providing enough for them because their stomach is growing faster than you can replenish it because they're being fed too much. So really you have to keep in mind that 1 to 1.5 ounce for every hour that you're gone. So the babysitter might want to give them more because it's an easy way to make them calm down, but that is really all they need, and you don't want their stomach to expand because you might never be able to keep up with that increasing supply being away from baby. So it is really important to be pace fed. I'll try to link a video of being pace fed in the comments below because I'm not sure. I definitely am not going to demonstrate at the moment, but my baby is asleep, it's nighttime. But there are some really good videos out there on pace feeding, so make sure you watch that. Make sure whoever is watching your baby watches that and really knows what pace feeding is and how to do it. But basically the premise of it is that when baby is drinking, they are more like sitting upright rather than like being laid down and given a bottle to like this. They're kind of sitting up and the bottle is like horizontal, and so they draw the milk out, taking as much as they want rather than you pouring it down their throat and giving to them. They take. So that's kind of the premise of pace feeding. And then I did kind of mention that it might be normal for them not to want to take anything when you're gone for the first couple times, and that is normal. You can try, if they don't want to take the bottle, you can have the person watching them try a syringe or a cup or just a different way of feeding them. You could do breast milk pops, like ice pops. You can just freeze some and make it like a lollipop. Again, just depends on the age of your baby, but trying different ways might encourage them to drink milk if the bottle is not working. So then obviously you probably know this, but you do need a good pump if you want to be successful at this. I would recommend the Spectra brand. I have the Spectra S2. It is a great pump in my opinion. It is a closed system, so I don't have to worry about the mold like the open systems such as Medela have. But make sure you have a good pump because that is really key. If you are not getting enough milk, it could be that your pump isn't very good. I would also recommend nursing bras and ice packs, a good cooler. I just have this small plain one. I have a prettier one, but it's bigger, and this is actually just what I preferred. Something small that can fit in a bag that I don't have to carry a whole extra thing around. And ice packs fit in here. It stays colder because it's smaller, so I prefer something like this, but of course you can do whatever you want. You want your bottles and your pump parts and something to wash them with at the end of the day, or you can just bring them home and wash them at home. But that is basically, all you need really to have a successful pumping journey at work. Of course, along with not pumping enough, it could be your pump, but it could be a lot of other different things too. So you want to make sure you are drinking enough water and eating enough food. I know for me at work, it's hard when I'm at a desk or when I'm busy, like walking around and doing meetings, it's hard to remember to eat lunch or drink water, and those things really do affect your supply. So you need to make sure you are keeping up with your water intake and your food and getting your calories in. You also need to make sure you are making it a priority. It's so easy to be, in a project and just hold off pumping until you're done, but you need to keep your supply up, which means pumping every 2 to 3 to 4 hours, depending on how old your baby is. But you can be pumping for 15 to 20 minutes at a time. So it is a time commitment, and you do need to make it a priority. If you're having trouble getting the milk out or getting it flowing, you could try looking at pictures of your baby. You could bring a onesie or something from home that you can smell. You can watch a video of baby crying. Those types of things really stimulate your milk and tell your brain to keep it flowing. So those are just other little tips. Another thing is you could massage your breast to help the milk come. Another thing you'll definitely want to do is nurse on demand at home. Try not to schedule at home, because if you let baby nurse on demand, that'll make sure that your supply is staying up and that you have enough. And then also, I just want you to remember that what you can pump is not indicative of what baby actually pulls from the breast. Baby is way more efficient than a pump. They can pull so much more than a pump can. So if you are wondering why baby doesn't seem hungry at home, but you can't pump here, it could just be that baby is way more efficient. So just keep that in mind when you are pumping and don't get discouraged. Now, breast milk storage is another common question, and it really depends on which advice or which piece of information you follow, because the CDC is different from the IBCLCs, is different from the Kelly Mom, is different from this person over here. In general, breast milk is good room temperature for 4 to 8 hours. It can last in the fridge for 3 to 7 days and in the freezer for up to 12 months, but you do not want to store it on the door of the freezer. You want to store it in the actual freezer. And if you have a pull-out one, you want to make sure it's back in the back to keep it as cold as possible. But even so it can last up to 12 months. 6 months is ideal, but if you have a deep freeze, it can last a little longer. If you have started a bottle and they didn't finish it, you can use it again for the next feeding. But if they don't use it at that time, then you either should toss it, or you could use it for a milk bath or something that is different than digesting it. And then you want to make sure that you are defrosting your milk in the refrigerator after you pull it out of the freezer. Or if you need it right away, then obviously you could just do it in warm water, but never the microwave. And when it is defrosted, you want to swirl it to kind of swirl it to mix it rather than shaking it. You want to keep those proteins in your breast milk as intact as possible. So just swirling it gently to mix it is the best option. And if you're in doubt, if you just don't remember, it wasn't labeled right, or you just put something in there and you forget, I have done it, we all do it. When in doubt, smell it or just taste it. You will know if it's bad, and baby probably will know if it's bad too. So just when in doubt, test it. And then the final thing I'll say is that if you are working in a company that has over 50 people, then you have rights at work, and you should not let them tell you that you don't, because by law in America, when you have over 50 employees, you must allow a space for someone to pump, as well as the time for someone to pump. And that place has to be a private place, and it has to not be a bathroom. Yes, they might give you a closet or something like that, but it will be a private, closed space that's not in the bathroom. And that law is in effect until baby's first birthday. So they should give you the time and the space at least until then. All right, that is all I have for you today. I know it can be so hard going back to work after baby is born. You create that special bond, and it can be just such a hard change. I hope this video at least gives you a little bit of less anxiety on this specific subject matter. I hope it helps you to know what to expect and what to prep for. Just cuddle that baby, give some skin to skin to that baby, and love with that baby while you have the chance to, in the mornings and in the nights. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.